about this. So the Bears-Eagles game will determine whether they play the Rams or the Saints. All the talk, too, about that Seahawks #1 rushing attack. And look at the difference between Chris Carson and Ezekiel Elliott. That definitely tells a story there. Zeke with 137 and almost 5.5 yards per carry. Chris Carson, not so much there. So let's talk about takeaways from this game over the Cowboys here and the Seahawks. Mike Rob, what do you think?
Yeah, this Cowboys team came to play, man, on both sides of the football, especially in the trenches. Defensively, this team came alive, man. To see these defensive tackles up front, I mean, Antoine Woods, Tyrone Crawford, these guys totally stopped the run. I mean, they totally stopped the double teams that Seattle wanted to get done. Linebackers, Leighton Vander Esch, Jalen Smith were all over the place. And this team is starting to get a little swag about itself. This defense is starting to get a little swag about itself. And it's embodied in assistant head coach Chris Richard. I know he has a lot of head coaching interviews coming up this week. I know he has some today. But this dude really understands how to communicate with these guys, how to make these guys believe that they're probably a little bit better than they really are. They're playing out of their mind right now. This swag of this defense right now, I'm telling you, they're playing out of their mind, and they can handle almost any offense that the NFC has to offer.
We've seen them against the Saints, and now we saw them against the Seahawks last night. They dominated the line of scrimmage. What do you think, Steve?
What we saw last night is a playoff team, a team that looked like a player. They belong and deserve to be in the playoffs. What we talk about going to the playoffs, how do we know a team is a playoff-bound team or a team that is destined to be in the playoffs? Last night, they looked like that team. They had offensive presence. They also dealt with some struggles. When they struggled, they did not panic. They stayed the course. They made adjustments. But you can also feel in that game a sense of urgency, but also a sense of confidence because of the way that defense was playing. You talked about, Mike Rob, the defensive tackles. DeMarco Lawrence was a Jadeveon Clowney clone of being disruptive in the game consistently, not on the stat sheets, but just always constantly peppering Russell Wilson, making him get off, Mike Rob used it, get off his spot, make him uncomfortable. Russell Wilson never looked comfortable. There were times he did occasionally, but never looked as comfortable as he did in week 3 or 4 when they played early in the season.
Yeah, DeMarcus Lawrence, he did a great job in that game. Also, I was really taken by the fact that Dak, he was able to come up big under pressure, under the lights. Right?
There, right?
Especially in that late drive there. I mean, everything came down to him and Ezekiel Elliott, and they were able to, I mean, the rest of the team too, but yeah. Amari Cooper came up big on that drive, Ezekiel Elliott and Dak. It's almost like little modern-day triplets.
Well, they played...
You think
little bit.
Triplets, you put it out there.
Hang on a second. That'll wake you up.
They played the type of game that they needed to play. Defense didn't allow the score to get crazy. They ran the football with Ezekiel Elliott, which held Dak Prescott's attempts down to below 40. And when he's not throwing, when he throws below 40 attempts, this team plays well.
Because you just need him to make a throw here and there. You don't put too much on his plate. He doesn't have to throw it 50 times a game. And when he does that and he gives you that throw that we just saw there, dropping the dime like Steve mentioned earlier on, that's all you need from him. And then you just create with your legs elsewhere. You're able to keep the ball in the read option and get yourself a little bit that way. The draw on 3rd and whatever it was, 15 to pick it up there at the end there. I don't sit here and say, oh, he's got to be this guy that's got to throw the ball and just be this dime dropper all game long. Just give me a couple here and there, and he did that.
But they did go up against a running team.
Yes.
They went up against a running team.
We'll talk about that next hour.
Okay.
Hey, look, I'd like to take a moment, too. We're talking about what do we expect looking at all these things. Let's take a moment. Alan Hearns. To see what that young man is going through, to see that devastating injury, they had to automatically go into emergency surgery, possibly. I think, you know, I haven't spoke to any team officials, but just looking at it, the history of injuries, that looked like one of those injuries where they had to do surgery to possibly save his leg. And understand this, that a lot of times fans say, you know, these athletes play football, they expect to get hurt. No one expects to play in a playoff game and be carted off and go into emergency surgery. That is not part of the game that as players we expect. That is the gruesome part of the game that I think fans need to understand, pray for, and understand that these young men coming in, that you have these dreams as a young boy to play this game, But as you continue to play this game as men, we walk out and we are carted off as young boys because in our minds we're going, man, this is not what I saw myself doing, how I'm finishing the game. So thoughts and prayers out to him and understand this is a gruesome game, but we experienced and it was a shame.
We're thinking about him for sure. You could just see the gravity of the situation with all of the Seahawks players out there as well and everyone going up to him when he was being carted off the field. But so the Cowboys, they win that game. We have 2 more games, though, today to get to. 1:05 Eastern, Chargers-Ravens, a rematch from 2 weeks ago. Then at 4:40, the